Greetings and God bless. So I was just riding my bike to get from a store through back to my office, and I saw something like just that demonstrated the lack of dignity here in Rapid City um, for people that just don't have their wits about them and don't have resources and burn bridges and where there's no toilet facilities. So this summer I was riding my bike under a bridge and it smelled like human feces, and it's by this there's like a co-op and then a kind of a mall type area and a gas station. So there's this underpass, and a lot of First Nations people, they'll just hang out all day in this empty kind of area, parking lot area. And so I sent a message to, I'm not sure if I said it to the city. I was like, there needs to be some sort of porta potty, because they're using the Rapid Creek as a bathroom. And then, because I could just smell it. And then today, so broad daylight, 4 o'clock, this lady, I see her, she's sitting on so she wasn't sitting on a bench. She was sitting on like this, there's there's sidewalls that you could sit at. So I saw her take down her pants and then start peeing, and that is pretty sad. It's 2021, and Rapids doesn't see any reason to have a bathroom around there, and I understand they want to discourage the homeless population from getting comfortable, I guess. But this is just really sad, I don't blame that lady. She's maybe hungover. She's maybe not even in this reality. Maybe she's so tired, like so physically ill, she didn't have the strength to go somewhere else to go pee. But it's very sad, and I feel like that sums up what happens here in Rapid. And I know there's people here that really try to help the First Nations people out. And I know that a lot of First Nations people hate white people. I experience this all the time myself. And they're calling me a European. They're telling me this is their land. The sidewalk I'm walking on apparently is their land, and that I personally am responsible for their restitution. And I believe there's probably some privileged globalist Marxist white person that did come and tell them all these things to say, and got them all hating people. So I have that perspective. And all my life, like Black people were really mean to me, assaulted me, and I just took it as like, okay, they had a difficult history, and but what I realize now is that's called, these people are doing what's called compensatory entitlement. Compensatory entitlement. Nobody has more rights than anybody else. Just because I'm a woman, I don't have more right than a man to have a cup of tea or to have freedom. We are all granted our equal rights to our own liberty. So a doctor has a doctor's rights, and me as an alternative health coach, content creator, content curator. I have those rights, and I don't have a hairdresser's rights because I don't know how to dress hair. Or I don't know how to cut hair. And this weird fairy tale mentality, this insanity that has taken over, destroyed lives, murdered people, destroyed civilization. It's got to stop. And I don't think it will. I think what's got to happen is Jesus has to return. And I know the agnostics and atheists and pagan New Agers, they think that I'm talking about some sort of fantasy, but this weird identity politics takedown of the world is mind-boggling and shameful. Shameful that it was so easy. Like there's so little resistance. There was only resistance when people were losing their jobs. That's when people started protesting for real. I mean, like what, like Occupy Wall Street. That was a big turnout. When the first wars in the Middle East in the 80s happened, there was like protests. But people that I talked to these past couple of years, everybody's just kind of quiet, not really angry, or it's weird, and that's why I keep on saying I think there's been a spell put on people. But anyways, it's just really sad. It's sad that Rapid doesn't have toilets. It's sad how the homeless situation is just it's the worst that I have ever seen. It's like Calcutta in India in my experience. And I grew up in New York City. I lived in San Francisco and Portland and, other parts of the country where I've met Native people, First Nations people in Alaska and Montana. And it was not as kind of twisted and diabolically destroyed. I've never seen anything like this. And everybody, white people, talk to somebody in Scotland or something like that, and they're like, yeah, well, you destroyed the native culture. My mom's side of the family's from Denmark, my dad's side of the family's from Croatia, and we're fairly new here. And if you really look into the history, and it's ironic because this guy who is blaming me personally for what happened to the First Nations people, he was a white guy, in Scotland, and he's a truther, kind of, decoding all sorts of other things, and there's more to this narrative of what happened in the United States than we have been led to believe. And it's just so interesting how people just they just want to bash the messenger. They want to kill the messenger. So I mean, if I told this to my peers, if I told this to locals here in Rapid, they would be kind of offended and defensive, and it's so weird. The thing is, they're so protected, they're so privileged and sheltered because they live out in the country and they have a car, so they never have to deal with the sidewalk, people on the sidewalk, and they don't want to know about it. They don't want to know how bad it is. And something I noticed is so there's a lot of white people, a lot of white organizations, and these organizations and these people are probably money laundering. Okay, so before anybody starts bashing me for saying white people have any good qualities, I do believe a lot of large organizations, large philanthropic organizations, they are money laundering operations for human trafficking, probably. But you see white people going to other countries, to Africa, to Asia, to South America, to Timbuktu, to help or to pretend to help. And sometimes they do help, and there's organizations, like local stuff for, women and different types of things. And how often do we see like Asians trying to help Americans or trying to help white people? How often do we see Black organizations being like, we need to help white people? You never see that. You never see like a Latino missionary, I'm going to go help white people. Never. It's laughable, right? Yeah. I just think it's interesting. What do you think about that? The first thing a progressive liberal will say, well, white people have privilege. I don't know about that. I do think there is some privilege being white, but I think there's more privilege if you have money and connections and charisma, confidence. I think those beat the race card for sure. If you really know how to amp up your looks and bully people or manipulate people or really work with people well, I think that it will supersede the race card. And I'm not saying being white doesn't have its benefits. Being a female, I think, is less threatening if you're just walking on a street or walking into, a store or something like that. Some people are a little less threatened by a man. But then there's women who hate other women. Like, that's what I've noticed in my, maybe the past 10 years or so, or maybe even longer, maybe the past 20 years, is like some women absolutely hate other women. Like, it's like another woman in the proximity is their enemy. I don't really understand it, but that has been my experience. And I'm just like, I'm trying to do my job. I'm just trying to, live my life. Like, I really don't care. And like these other people, like they're malignant narcissists or something, and they preoccupy. They're like, you can't talk now. You can't smile. You can't laugh. You're not allowed to use this resource. That's a common resource, and generally what happens is everybody's a coward and they don't want to deal with the conflict or the bullying, and then it gets out of hand. And so I don't understand Rapid City. It's a very strange city. I meet some very nice people, and there's believers here. Not the most dedicated, like hardcore King James version Bible believers, like, and I'm probably expecting way too much. But everybody, every church I've been to, like when I was in Montana, and I went to a few here in South Dakota and Virginia, it's like everybody's like busy sending missionaries, trying to save people, in a third world country, and God bless them. Praise the Lord, glory be to God. But people are left behind in the area, even in the church, because I went to a church, the last one I went to, and I was really trying hard because the pastor I follow was like, you must be in fellowship, you must be in a church. And like, I saw like some very sincere people come in, and they were a Native couple or an ex-convict, and nobody came to talk to them. But if you are white, well off, young, with a family, they were all over you. People waiting online to talk to you. And that was experience. And the thing is, I experienced that too. So it's not just race, because I didn't have a whole line of people trying to meet me when I was at this place, even after I was there for 6 months. And so, classism, I think that's the biggest issue, the biggest problem here in America. And that was, in the 60s, it's not really race, it's really class. Because if you're the king of Nairobi or something like that, do you think somebody's going to be racist to you? Like, do you, Like if you have an entourage of 80 cars preceding you and following you and whatnot, like people get the impression. So it's not really skin color, and the thing is, if somebody's going to be rude, it really isn't. It's a reflection of them, and it doesn't necessarily have something to do with race or class. But I do think class definitely sets you up. So, anyways, it's sad. It's sad that there's not enough toilets here, and I know if somebody from Rapid were to respond, they'd be like, well, all she had to do was walk, 3 blocks to, get to the toilet. But there's like a major interstate, two lane, like 4 lanes that she would have to cross to get to the bathroom. And I don't even know if that's an issue. I don't even know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm pretty, it's just, and just that somebody had to do that somebody, I mean, I've lived where there was really bad homelessness before, and in San Francisco, in New York. And one time in New York, there was this guy who would take an axe and chop a gash in his leg, so he would have this horrible wound in his leg, and that was how he made his money. That's how he got spare change. It was really medieval. And I know people will be like, oh, well, like, so on one hand, people, I think, are very ill. I think ordinary people are very ill. I'm pretty sure people, because so many people have heart disease and diabetes and osteoporosis and pernicious anemia and tooth crumbling and missing, and severe dental problems and Lyme disease and mold exposure and things they don't even understand. Kids with autism or Asperger's. So, and we are brainwashed to think that this is normal, that disease is normal. It's not normal. And so when there's so much complex chronic illness across the board with everybody dealing with it, that affects civilization. It affects behavior. It affects decision making. And so I'm pretty confident that the homeless people here have severe chronic illness, multiple chronic illness, and then that translates into mental illness. When you're really chronically ill, if you're in chronic inflammation or chronic Lyme disease, you got parasites in your brain and you've got brain swelling and whatever. I mean, that's going to affect your ability to think clearly and cope and make decisions. And there's like, and that's, and the solution is just so the solution is to stop the Rockefeller poisoning of the atmosphere, poisoning of the food, water supply, the big pharma medical industrial complex. That's where the medications and the treatments are making people worse than they were when they first entered in the office, medical doctor's office. And so what I'm saying is, it's like it's really it's a Herculean task to try to be healthy in this deliberately deadly, slow kill engineered situation. So I don't completely, blame people for being so out of it and homeless and that but those that have more privilege and more space and that are responsible for a community, I would hope that they would try to keep things as dignified, even for the lowest of the low, even for the most poor and the most messed up people. And the thing is, there's not a whole lot of, I'll see police cars around, but I never see, I think I've seen police walking once, twice, on Main Street, and it's usually when there's like a fair or a festival. Maybe it's like hired security. So I don't know where all the police are. And maybe, and I know that they work hard. I know they're very stressed and overwhelmed. So they're probably somewhere doing, I don't know, maybe they're working in the underground bases and, saving the world. But there's not a lot of outreach. I know there's homeless kind of resources available downtown. So maybe that's doing something, maybe it's not. And the homeless people here are just like some of the most brutal, like unkind, like savage in the full sense of the word, just like no respect, no nothing, like I hate being on the sidewalk. I hate walking around people here in Rapid. I'm just like, are you going to start hollering at me? Are you going to start like trying to demand my attention? It's hell. It's the worst city I have ever lived in as a pedestrian. And there's just so many levels of it that I have experienced. And I'm surprised because part of my family is from South Dakota, and I just had good memories of it when I was here as a child. But times change, I guess, and maybe my perspective is off. I mean, I think it's because I'm a pedestrian. I see something different, and it's not a perspective that city managers kind of care about. Nobody cares about the pedestrian. They want everybody to buy a car and get insurance and spend a lot of money and be part of the infrastructure and whatnot. And the thing is, when you're a pedestrian, that's one less car downtown. It's one less car somewhere so that you have parking. So it's really to everybody's benefit to make it easier and safer for a pedestrian or somebody who rides a bike, because we're not taking up the traffic. We're not taking up your parking spot. Although I'm like downtown a lot, and there's one more parking spot that people get when I'm here at my office. So, and the same thing goes for homeless people. Like one thing is that they're not taking up the parking spot. They're on foot. They're not doing any carbon footprint. When the globalists take over, the homeless people are not probably going to have as much of a shock as the insulated, privileged, entitled people with their cars and their little, bubbles that they live in. So I would like it, Rapid, if you would have porta potties or something for where the homeless people congregate. That's where they are. That's where they're going to be. They shouldn't be peeing, in the park in broad daylight, where next to the children's play area, on a wall and under overpasses. Like, let's give them some dignity. And yes, I know it's probably going to cost $200 a month or something like that. But or have a compost toilet or something, So those are my thoughts. God bless.